The next topic, we have minority to introduce private members bill to removal of E-Levy and the betting tax. And this story is by our parliamentary correspondent, Ni Ayikwe Okai. The minority in Parliament has announced its intention to introduce a private members bill aimed at repealing the E-Levy, emissions tax and betting tax. This move comes in response to the recent proposal by the New Patriotic Party's flag bearer, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, who pledged to eliminate these taxes if elected in the 2024 polls. While the E-Levy, emissions tax and betting tax have been contentious issues, the minority aims to address them through legislative action. The private members bill seeks to compel the government to reconsider these taxes, which are considered nuisance taxes. During this concluding remarks on the State of the Nation's Address, SONA, delivered by President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo in Parliament on Monday, Dr. Kesel Atuforsen, the minority leader, emphasized that these taxes placed a heavy burden on businesses within the country. Dr. Forsen expressed hope that the majority side of the House, which endorsed Dr. Bawumia's stance on removing the E-Levy, would also support this bill. I'm about to quote him. The unemployment situation in our country is at a crisis point. Mr. Speaker, the high cost of living has become a nightmare for many people. This has significantly deteriorated during the depreciation of our currency, especially, Mr. Speaker, food inflation. Sadly, a recent World Bank report on food security released on the 13th of November 2023 cited Ghana among the top 5 countries in the world with the highest food inflation. Many families in Ghana today cannot put food on their table, he stated. Paul, hi. Let me come to you.
I think that it is too little, too late. It will be a needless exercise, on the part of the minority to attempt to, as it were, take out E-Levy and then betting tax. Why do I say so? The policy, if you like, was implemented somewhere in May 2023. And we were told on the 22nd of last month, that's February, by the late Deputy Minister of Finance, Honorable John Kuma, that the E-Levy had generated some 1.19 billion Ghana cedis. I think it was a good thing, but unfortunately, government doesn't listen. That's just the bottom line. See, this government is so headstrong, and I wonder what it is really is going on. Listen, you brought up the issue of, or the idea of E-Levy. Okay, you didn't want Ghana going to the IMF anymore. So then, let us find, alternatives by which we can rake in more revenue for our development. Stakeholder engagements, left, right, center, and then we advised that, listen, the 1.75 rate that you are asking for is quite on the high side. And so why don't you consider, say, 1% or even halving what the telcos have been taking? Mind you, the telcos were taking or are still taking 1%. Mm-hmm. Some even 0.75%, right? And so where you have a fresh policy that seeks to, take something off, people's wallets, there will be agitations left, right, center. So why don't you slow down, hasten slowly, and then start with the 1%? Government says, no, I am still adamant, I'll go with what I want. And then it went ahead with the 1.5. That speculation alone took in excess of 82 billion of the transactions from Momo. Just that speculation that we're going to be charging 1.5% E-Levy on Momo transactions, it took in excess of about 82 billion from the 1.2 trillion transactions that we've been having through Momo over the period. That was a significant blow. And if government had listened, perhaps just that 1% or even 0.5% of the rate on all Momo transactions without even a cap, that would have sufficed. And to date, since May 2023, we can boast of a paltry, 1.19 billion. How do you make progress with such? And then eventually it came back and said, okay, now I've listened. I have reduced the 1.5 to now 1% going forward. What happened? What changed? Could we have done it better than we did earlier? Yes. If you had listened to the engagements that you had with us. Because it was glaring that it was going to come back and hit us in the face. That the 1.75 we're asking for was a bit on the high side. And so if perhaps we had listened and taken the 1% or the 0.5%, government really would have gained more than it did or it has with the 1.19 billion that it has raised. Now, the Vice President, in his address, in fact, that day I was there. It was one of the shambolic organizations that I have ever seen with political, conferences or programs. You have invited CSOs, you have invited diplomatic corps, you had invited political parties, and here we were at the UPSA. We didn't even have space to park, that's one. Going inside the auditorium, in fact, we didn't even have chairs to sit on. I'm not saying this to cast any spell on anyone or sort of exactly, but I'm just stating facts. All right, I was there, and I'm sure some of the organizers also saw me. I was there. Some of the diplomatic corps members were standing with them. We all stood there to listen to the Vice President speak in that sorry state. And it was quite unfortunate. All right. He did mention that when giving the nod in 2024, he is going to abolish the E-Levy. Right. And then you ask yourself, why couldn't he abolish it, from the very beginning?
But he's not the president.
I'm just saying.
So when he becomes the president, definitely he will.
You see,
mind you, he said
we've always assumed the Vice President to be the head or the chair of the economic management team.
Yeah.
All right. Then
in principle,
the issue was debunked. All right. It was debunked. You see, here is a man who has been fighting so hard to making sure that we go digital as a nation. And we should applaud him for that. Then in the same vein, you come back and introduce E-Levy. He, the Vice President, came out and said there will be nothing like E-Levy. But the same government came out to announce E-Levy. In one breath, no E-Levy. In another, here we are with E-Levy.
I don't think he didn't say there would be.
Larry,
but
hold
he
on.
said that he is not for it. I mean,
So his government.
He wasn't for it. He wasn't for it. But then I recall, I'm saying this because we've done a couple of stories on it, where he went to Peace FM and talked about that he's not for it. But days later, Ken went and then passed it. Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and I think he's maintained a certain consistency.
Is it to say that the Vice President's outfit and the Finance Ministry, were not
on the same platform.
On the same level?
It's obvious. I mean, if I know
but that's just by the way. Let's not even go into the realm of speculation.
I know a few things, and I know you know.
I don't know.
Elaine is trying to put you on the spot.
I won't allow you. I didn't even hear.
Let's go by what's on the.
Yeah.
You see, so there's a bit of incoherence here and there, because if you are against it, then from the very beginning we should have heard you state it.
Yeah.
You don't keep quiet for the bill to be passed, and then at the end of the day, you come back telling us, hey, when I'm giving the nod, I'm going to abolish XYZ. No.
You take a stance from
exactly. From the very beginning, let us know what your position is. You don't wait when your colleagues have, or your government has gone ahead to implement it, then you come back and tell us, me cry, I was setting my somewhere.
The built of trust
and
amongst the people.
So it's just most unfortunate that we had to implement E-Levy and still go ahead to the IMF, begging for some 3 billion, USD to run stuff in our country. All right? The whole idea of the E-Levy was that we're not going to the IMF anymore.
The same
but let's
government
ask
that
ourselves.
will never go to
Yes.
the IMF.
Let's ask ourselves, are we with the IMF or not?
As we can see, as the papers are reporting.
First tranche ended, second tranche has
is
come in.
Yeah.
All right? And we are even praying that a president or the president will not assent to a certain gay bill, as if I'm allowed
we may not be handicapped financially
just look
in
at
the
this.
near future.
All right. So yes, it's a good call, but it's too little, too late on the part of the minority. I believe that we should allow the bill or the levy to run its course. We've been able to generate something which is good. As we speak presently, Ghana is in debt crisis, and we need all the revenue that we can get, to run the affairs of the country. So. If they get the nod in the 2024 elections and they win power, that is a good platform for them to also cancel it when they come. So for now, I don't think that is a good call on the part of the minority to introduce any private members bill to take off E-Levy and betting tax.
Thank you, Paul. Larry, now it's your turn.
Sure, thank you. The history of private members bill in this country has been very funny. Okay. So I recall the witchcraft bill that went through, the same private members bill. Exactly, by Sosu also.
Yes, Sosu. Xavier Sosu.
Yes, and then he did the death penalty also, private members. Then, as we speak, the LGBTQ
exactly. Yes.
One, the president, I think he assented to the death penalty.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Not that I can fully speak on.
Because of the
meanwhile, then he went to the UN and trumpeted how, this whole thing, it's more about the human rights, angle, and that Ghana is, it's a leading light when it comes to some of these things, and that lynching of people on suspicion that they are witches and so on. I mean, it's a human rights issue, and so he is encouraging people. He's supportive of the witchcraft one, and I think even he spoke about the death penalty and so on. So in one breath, on an international platform, you are ready to trumpet what is happening here through the private members bill. In another breath, it comes to LGBTQ, and another private members, you are not for it. Now, sometimes then he's saying that, listen, when we implement some of these things, it's going to impose additional cost. On the public purse. And so we need to massage it very well. The whole idea is confusing. Okay? So now these ones are going to take money out. The E-Levy and the emissions and all those things, they are supposed to be bringing in money.
Revenue.
Now, if whoever it is champions this private members bill again, that would the president assent to it? Something, I'm supportive of this thing, and so the taxes shouldn't be.
Maybe that is not as heavy as the anti-gay bill. Maybe that is not as heavy as the anti-gay bill.
No, but the witchcraft one, what would you say to that one too? And how about the death penalty and so on? So it's confusing. It could just be one of the things. I think the minority knows that this thing wouldn't go anywhere. Do you understand? It won't go anywhere. They could do it. You could have the speaker put it I mean, they could do the debates and all that, but at the end of the day, it won't go anywhere because the E-Levy is the baby of the president. Okay, he talked about how the vice president should have spoken about it strongly beyond the Peace FM thing that I talked about.
He has his own assertions.
Yes, you know what it is. Do you remember in the history of this country, the president was allegedly beating up the vice president in the castle?
Allegedly.
Allegedly, that is why it is being alleged.
Yeah, Jerry John Rawlings and then Aka.
It was alleged.
So you can't have the...
You think there'll be a repetition?
You know, but the E-Levy, see, on a more serious note, the E-Levy thing, it's quite, I mean, it's, I don't know what word to use, but, you know, those students who are, you know, people who are, let's say, having studies with schools outside, and maybe they use online or all that.
Yes.
Now, for the exams, you have to pay.
The charges.
The charges.
Yes, I do with Nextford, and the charges are serious.
Thank you.
The charges are serious. If I'm paying, let's say, $147 for the first sem.
Yeah.
So the entire thing, if it's $3,700, I'm paying $147 as per how they have parted it for me to be able to pay.
Yeah.
I have to take about, let's have about $100 in my account.
Yeah.
Excessive $100 in my account before it can go through for me. Yes, that is sad. So
see, I'm
Charlie,
sitting
education
here,
is expensive.
and I'm supposed to pay about £1,005 to a school in the UK. Okay, and 25% of that is E-Levy.
Goes into E-Levy.
The fact that the guys are even having to do the exams even online, you pay for it.
Sometimes
so you are
Zoom
paying
calls.
Yes. Exactly, even the Zoom.
Even the
So
Zoom
you
calls.
are paying the school, you are paying, they are bringing the exams, you are paying for E-Levy. So it goes beyond Momo to bank transactions. School, students, I mean, listen, the schools here, most students can get admission to most of the schools.
Oh, yeah.
And so you have to go outside and then go and, study. Correspondent courses or, all that distance learning and so on. And how wicked can you be to this point where even student, how much am I making or how much are, the students making by way of salary?
Anyway.
Larry, my point even is that, listen, on the principle of morality, all right?
Morality clause debanked.
If you insisted that the E-Levy was for a specific purpose. What was the purpose? That we will not go to the IMF. And so I'm bringing in this solution so that we can generate what we need within internally.
And the use for that generation itself, what is it being used for exactly? Because the Ghanaian people, we only have a few minutes. We only have a few minutes to go.
Talk about fiscal discipline.
To service our debt. So exactly. E-Levy is taking the mixing is
taking now the betting taxes.
Yes,
what is your debt to GDP now?
And then the 15% on ECG.
GDP is about 90.
They've told us that it wouldn't come, but
in another means, yes, definitely. Talking about ECG,
already they had inflated dollar. You had inflated the dollar, the amount of which you change dollar in this town. At the time of 11 Ghana cedis, you were quoting 13 plus.
13.
And nobody's talking about it.
13.4, yeah.
Nobody's talking, including the NDC minority. Very comfortable with this. These guys. Very comfortable.
We just talked about ECG.
No, I'm talking about this inflated thing. They are not talking about it. They are comfortable with it. Charlie, these guys.